You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And now, here's two guys whose April diets will consist of nothing but peanuts and Cracker Jacks, Evan and Joe.
I'm Joe Ticotsky down in New Haven, Connecticut.
I'm Evan McFarlane here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick.
And you're watching episode 69 of Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And as we turn the calendar from winter to spring, before we move on to baseball season, let's wrap up basketball. 2023-24 was a great college basketball season in my alma mater. The University of Connecticut won their second consecutive men's NCAA championship. Great year for the Huskies.
Yeah, man, they were strong. Like you could tell they were on a mission from the second that tournament started.
On a mission from God, as the Blues Brothers would say. We both made our Final Four predictions back on March 21st. I swear we did, but we had a delay because my laptop died. So in the process, it took a few weeks to get back. But Evan had North Carolina, UConn, Houston, and Purdue. I had Arizona, UConn, Marquette, and Purdue. And we both had UConn over Purdue in the battle of the 7-footers.
We did it.
So that and $2 will get you a small cup at Tim's. Is that what the saying goes?
I think that's pretty much what it is.
And how about Yale and our good friend Brandon Sherrod, which you did predict that. They had the big upset, one of the big upsets of the tournament with their shocker over Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was coming. I expected them to go deeper.
And he, I believe, is the only player ever at Yale that played in the NCAA tournament and then coached, as he's now an assistant coach at Yale. But we also had a great high school basketball season up there in New Brunswick and down here in Connecticut. So we're going to quickly honor the champions. And Evan, why don't you start us out and give us the winners from the 2024 New Brunswick Provincial Basketball Championships held at TD Station in St. John.
Yeah, absolutely. Great basketball this year. A lot of strong programs coming out of here. You're starting to see a lot more players making it to youth sport and college levels out of New Brunswick as well. So the hype is real. Ball and basketball is building. But yeah, start with the girls' side. AAA, my assistant coach, Mr. Andy Hamilton, alumni of St. Max in St. John. Their girls team is just phenomenal now, and he was very excited for their win. Congrats to them. AA, not too far up the road, St. Stephen. That amazing round. They've played your buddies from RNS, and that was another close game. Those guys battled all year back and forth. So congrats to St. Stephen. And then single A in another game that was very, very close, a hard fought battle between them and Southern Vic was Harvey. So congrats to those three teams on the championships. And on the boys' side, just like St. Max and AAA in St. John, the boys' side, Kennebecasis Valley has a very strong team that seems to be in the mix every year. So they pulled off the win this year. AA, you go to the other side of St. Andrews, and Jordy Doak and his team from Fundy won. So congrats to those guys. A heck of a year. They're exciting to watch. They're a lot of fun. They are fast and strong. Really cool. And single A, where we went to for regionals, John Caldwell, that team, man, like I think they could probably contend in AAA. I've never seen a group of 10 guys shoot as well as that team can shoot.
Some good hoops up there. And I will quickly go over Connecticut, our state champs, and the games that were held at Mohegan Sun Casino. In boys Division I, Notre Dame of West Haven. Division II, Windsor. Division III, Bunnell High School. Division IV, Innovation. And Division V, Old Lyme, who had a 21-year-old coach who was barely old enough to drink at the casino.
I think that's how old I was when I started.
On the girls' side, we'll go small schools up in Class S. Summers and our former AAU player, Eliana Wood, with their first win in 47 years. Wow. Class M, St. Paul. Class MM, Northwest Catholic. Class L, Simsbury, my buddies Sam Zullo and Vinny Sanferrani. That's not an Italian law firm. Coached the team to a great victory. And in double L, it was the year of the alma maters. As you'll add later on at the end of the show, my alma mater won back-to-back girls titles, Hamden High. So congratulations to
Nice.
Amanda Fortucci and her team. And after
Wow.
the break, we'll interview the new radio play-by-play voice of your Toronto Blue Jays. You're watching Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV in St. Andrews. Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Our first guest is Ben Shulman, a Toronto native and the new radio play-by-play voice of the Toronto Blue Jays. Ben has made a rapid rise through the sports announcing ranks, although he's just 24. A 2022 grad of Syracuse University's prestigious Newhouse School of Communications, he's announced minor league baseball in Indiana, has done college football and basketball for the ACC Network, SEC Network, and ESPN Plus, and currently does basketball games for the Toronto Raptors G League team. His dad is Dan Shulman, the current TV play-by-play man for the Blue Jays and longtime ESPN announcer. So now that baseball season is upon us, let's welcome in Blue Jays radio announcer Ben Shulman. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on, and I'm excited to get talking.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Ben. We appreciate your time, not as much as I appreciate your beautiful attire that you're wearing right now. Go Leafs.
There we go. There we go.
All right, let's get rolling here. Ben, I'm always curious as to how our various guests pursued their career paths. So when did you get the announcing bug?
Yeah, it's for me really early on. I mean, and I'm sure we'll get into it a bit, but with the way I grew up, it definitely, I was paying probably more attention to broadcasters at a very young age than I think a lot of people were because, honestly, and I would say this as a broadcaster, the most interesting guys are by far the guys playing the sport on the screen. So I was kind of a rare case where I was watching and listening to the broadcasters just as much. And then I think for a lot of broadcasters, there's kind of a seminal moment where you realize you're not nearly good enough at sports to ever pursue it. And I one time was not working. I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I got to volunteer at an exhibition game between Canada and France men's basketball. And I was like sweeping under the hoop. And I was doing it alongside a guy named Sammy Routens, who was the son of Leo Routens, Raptors analyst, great player at Syracuse, and first-round draft pick in the NBA. And Sammy and I, before we were getting to our sweeping duty, were allowed to just like horse around on the court before the game. And he was in a whole different range of player than I was. I could tell pretty early on there. I think he hit an NBA three or something like that. Or an international three, it might have been. And we were like 11, maybe 10 or 11. And I just kind of, from that point on, was like, all right, I'm not even close. Because, Sammy's a great player. He ended up playing college in the US, but like, it's not like he made the NBA either. So I knew that I kind of was out of it. From that point on, broadcasting was always my focus. I never actually did a game until I must have been 15 or 16 when I actually did a game with a microphone that was broadcasting out to places. But I was kind of something I had always wanted to do.
All right, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, usually when guys get started, you kind of get thrown in and you're doing a whole bunch of different sports and you just kind of take what you can get. But which sports have you announced on radio and or TV, and what has ended up being your favorite to announce?
Yeah, there's a good mix. I'll try and make sure I remember because I at school where I went to at Syracuse University, both in school opportunities and out of school, there's a chance to do so many things. So I know I did at least there and a lot of these professionally too. Men's and women's basketball, men's and women's lacrosse, football, soccer, hockey, field hockey. What else was there? Softball, which I don't know if I said. Of course, baseball, and probably one or two others that are Little League baseball, kind of a different sport. And one or two others that are probably slipping my mind. I have done the most baseball out of anything. Part of that's the nature of the sport. I mean, where in one season, even in the minor leagues, you do like 130 or 140 games. I tend I tend to lean that it's my favorite from the repetitions I've done. The ability that you get to have to be with the team every single day is really exciting. And then baseball, because there's time in between. Football has that too, to be honest, where there is some dead time in between. You really get to personalize and customize your broadcast, I think, in a way. And that's not to say I don't enjoy the other sports. I really, really do. I love doing basketball in the winter. It's been a ton of fun. And I think it fits the time of year. I think in the summer, I'm more in the mood to sit there and kind of really dive into things. In the winter, the game really like jolts you. Basketball, it's flying back and forth and it's pushing the action, and I really like that. But if I had to choose one, I think I would go with baseball.
Okay. Um, it's amazing how many famous announcers have sons or daughters that get into the business. Probably most famously a guy like Marv Albert and his son Kenny, and the late Jack Buck and his son Joe. And as we mentioned in the opening, your dad is Blue Jays TV play-by-play announcer Dan Shulman and longtime ESPN man. How's your dad influenced you, and was it tough sort of forging your own style on the air, different from your dad?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely had a huge influence on me. The reason that when I was a kid, I was paying attention to broadcasters more than most is almost 100% because a lot of the time I'd be watching a game and he'd be doing it. So, just really introducing me to the entire industry. And then I think, I try not to be the same as him, but there are, he has been very successful in his career, and there are definitely parts of what he does. I think the kind of relaxed nature of it, the casual nature where you feel like you're just sitting there and talking to him like if he was on the couch with you or in a bar with you, something like that. That's something that I think I've definitely, tried to implement. I want people to feel calm and relaxed in the same way that I think they do when they listen to his games. But yeah, it's not the easiest, I think, to at least have other people see that you're different. I think that we have distinct styles from each other. One thing that we did that I think helped that was like for the entire time when I was in high school and then in university doing games and stuff like that, he wasn't really a major factor in my development at that point. Like for as a decision both of us made, I think that we wanted to get like a foundation for me before he really got in there and made that many changes, and I was still learning a lot of basics and stuff like that. So I really kind of learned how to do it and made my foundation myself. And now after graduating and becoming a professional for a couple years, I think we probably have a little bit more collaboration than we did before, where I have more of a style already, and it's not going to mold me just into a second version of him. But it's still hard. I think a lot of people, especially when they listen to it, my voice isn't as deep as his, but I think a lot of people mention that my name is two letters off of his name, like Dan Shulman and Ben Shulman. So I get why a lot of people would potentially not see a ton of differences. I'm not trying to like avoid being him, but I'm also trying to not be the exact same thing. So we'll see how that develops over time as it continues.
Yeah, as Evan knows, I used to drive him crazy. When I grew up, I listened to Marv Albert on NBC AM, do the New York Knicks games. And then when we started our show, I used to drive him crazy with my imitations of Marv. Sorry, it slipped out.
It's
All right,
awful. Doesn't go away. And how much different is it calling a baseball game on radio than it is on television?
Oh, it's in some ways it's like a different world. It might not seem that different, but when you go to radio, the responsibility you have as the play-by-play is huge. Because you essentially, like the way I think about it a lot is like the person's flying blind with you. They have no idea what's going on. You provide like all five senses to them in what's going on at a game, what they're seeing, maybe not what they're hearing because they hear the crowd a little bit and they hear the crack of the bat, but even a little bit of that, whether there's smells and other things going on. and you have to describe everything. You really want to make sure that people understand what's going on, set the scene, constantly resetting the score, the outs, the bases, who's on the mound. This guy's a right-handed hitter. He played for this team this last year, and these were his numbers. On TV, you can see all of
Right.
a lot of stuff, the vast majority of it. So rather than providing all that stuff, I find TV is what can you add to it, and really how on TV, how can you set up the people around you too, I think, to really add to it. Because on TV, on radio, my, you know, quote unquote skill as play-by-play is put to the test to really describe it. On TV, I'm doing some play-by-play, but the most important stuff in terms of adding flavor to the broadcast is what the guy who's hit 95 before has to say, or the guy who's been in a World Series before, or been in these moments, or the girl who's been in those moments as well. So, I find myself, like, I use a basketball analogy in my head for a lot of it, or metaphor, whatever. And if you're on TV, I find myself playing very like Steve Nash basketball. I really want to move it around. Like the analyst might be at Stoudemire or those Shaq years or whatever, and the on-field reporter is kind of like the corner three-point shooter that I got to get it to for some big hits. On radio, you just don't have as much. Like, you have to be able to go and say what you need to say. I want to talk to my analyst as much as possible. There is time to do that for sure, but you slip closer to Allen Iverson or to Damian Lillard or to Steph Curry or whatever, where you're not passing, but you have a large amount of responsibility that you have to deal with. So they are very different. I think if you get experience in them, then it's not that crazy to switch back and forth. But in the minor leagues that I worked in Fort Wayne a couple years ago for the Tin Caps, the San Diego Padres affiliate, they had TV and radio, which was great. But switching back and forth while I was learning it, I had to learn, like, it's a lot different. I would go to TV and talk way too much. And you don't want to over talk, and then you got to go back to radio and remember that you have to talk all the time. And as much as you want to get your analyst involved, there's a lot necessary to do. So it's fun. I like both of them, and I think they both come with unique challenges.
Yeah. Nice. I can kind of feel your pain on that radio set, doing all the grunt work and setting up your partner just for the big hit. That's kind of my daily life with Joe.
There you go. There you go. Good one, Ev. Ben, we talked off air about some great memories you have of traveling with your dad while growing up to various major league parks while he was on assignment. Tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, I truly am, incredibly fortunate for a lot of the stuff that I've been able to experience, given his job, and just the fact that he and I both love sports so much that we've, shared that passion. I know one of the ones that always sticks out in my mind, and I could be getting details, like minor details, wrong, but I believe the Tigers were playing against the Yankees, or I think the Yankees, on Sunday Night Baseball. I believe we were in New York, and that was the year that Terry Francona was on the Sunday Night Baseball crew, which it was always awesome, the different people that came in and out, just so, between Oral Hershiser and Bobby Valentine and all these people. But Terry Francona was there, and Tito's about the nicest human being on the planet. And I'm 12 maybe years old, and I'm a soft hitting first baseman with a little bit of a glove. And Tito took an interest in it, and he took me out to, I believe, Central Park. And we found a patch of grass, and he hit grounders at me, and then I threw them back to him, and we did it for not that long, but probably 20-30 minutes. Max Scherzer walked by through Central Park at one point. I believe he was starting for the Tigers that day, and he's got two different colored eyes, so you could spot him from a mile away, honestly, if you're a baseball fan. And so that happened, and I remember in the very early days of Twitter, where you could see there wasn't that much going on there, so you could see a lot. I remembered seeing someone tweet, I think Terry Francona's hitting ground balls to a kid just in the park right now, but it could just be a different guy. I don't want to interrupt or whatever, but that always stuck with me. I know, traveling a little with my dad too, when Oral Hershiser was with him, who worked for a long time, the great Dodgers pitcher. I was struggling to pitch well at that point. And he taught me the grip that I would throw for my curveball for my entire childhood, which ended up being my best pitch. So that was pretty fun. And then there's some good basketball ones too. If I can think back to it. Oh, there's one when I was a kid, I loved Michigan. Like loved them. They had a lot of Canadians that would play on their basketball team. And that drew me to it. And it's the one that really got me locked in, although this was after I'd already started rooting for them, was Nick Stauskas, who is from around my area and was a great college player. And he's playing at Michigan State. And my dad was doing the game. And so we went, but like Michigan State's providing me a ticket. So I was wearing green and sitting in the Michigan State student section, and Stauskas is hitting shots and barking at everyone. And every time he hits a shot, I'm just like tiny fist bumping under my like belt or something, just like very small situations. And there was a guy beside me who was Canadian and saw me doing it, and he was like, "Don't worry, I'm cheering for Stauskas too." So that was kind of fun. I think Michigan beat Michigan State that day, but it's been great. I mean, we've gotten to go to almost every ballpark. I've seen, between my work in school at Syracuse and then I'll travel with him, I've seen a good number of college basketball arenas, and it's been a great experience. I was very lucky to do all that.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, on that note, Ben, I couldn't finish out our interview without giving you one great sports tidbit, which you may or may not know. For the record, while your Syracuse Orange have a 56-39 series lead in men's hoops over my UConn Huskies, you may not know we have 5 NCAA titles to your one Carmelo-led title. Which were you even born? Were you born then?
I was born, and I was very aware of your 5 titles because I went to school with a lot of people from Connecticut, and they were very clear. But yeah, I was born. I was pretty young. Yeah, Syracuse basketball has not exactly performed in the way that we all would have wanted recently, but I'm hoping if all these conferences go crazy soon, that they separate basketball conferences from football and we get the Big East back. Because I got to go to Washington and do a Georgetown game once, which was really fun. But even Syracuse playing Georgetown once a year just doesn't feel right to me.
Believe me, I go to UConn games, and when we were in that American Athletic Conference, it was just oh God, it was horrible. But the Big East is awesome. Now, did your dad ever do any games at the Dome while you were a student there?
Yeah, lucky enough, a handful of them, especially in my 4th year or my senior year, depending on if you're a Canadian or American listening. I did 3 different games that he was also doing. So I worked for an NPR station called WAER that a lot of students go to at Syracuse, and we did Syracuse Drexel at Syracuse that he was doing for ESPN, and I was doing for WAER. And then I went to Duke because I was like one of the seniors that year, so we got the best trips. So I went to Duke, and he was doing Duke Syracuse, and we got ripped apart by Paulo Banchero. And then the ACC tournament he was at in Brooklyn, and I got to go there too. So we actually got kind of lucky. We did probably, I guess, 4 games, because 2 ACC tournament games, 4 games together that year, and then he would have done 1 or 2 others where he came up to Syracuse when I was there. The only thing that impacted it was COVID kind of stopped it for about a year and a half, but then it came back. So it was
Very
all
good.
Cool.
Well, he is Ben Shulman, new radio voice of your Toronto Blue Jays and proud alum of Syracuse University. To catch Ben and his color commentary man, Chris LaRue, on the air this season, if you live in Canada, you can go to sportsnet.ca or the Sportsnet app. And for those of us down here in the U.S., you can go to MLB.tv to access the Blue Jays radio feed. Ben, thanks so much for being on the show. You were awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you both. It was a lot of fun.
Welcome back to Mc&T Sports Report. And before we wrap things up, let's do a quick music spotlight. The Trans-Canada Highwaymen are a new 4-person Canadian supergroup. One of the members was in Bare Naked Ladies. Another one was in the group Sloan, and they are simply one great pop group. Their tagline, your favorite Canadian songs of the 60s and 70s, sung by your favorite Canadian artists from the 80s and 90s. And their first album includes Rock Me Gently by Canadian Andy Kim, and one of the best pop songs ever, Heartbeat, It's a Love Beat, by fellow Canadians, the DeFranco family. Check them out at transcanadahighwaymen.ca. Evan, before our audience falls asleep, why don't you give the shout out?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of not sleeping, that's what my boys at University of New Brunswick did this year with their hockey team, who have successfully finished their season undefeated. That is regular season, playoffs, national championships, exhibition games, couple tournament games. It's they are a force. They're the best team in Canada. You've got the Spit and Chicklets guys pushing for them to play the best team in the States now. I think they've probably got a chance at that too. But shout out to the main guy, Coach Gardner McDougall, and what he's done up there. It's incredible. And a side piece to that, as of yesterday, Gardner has been announced as Canada's U18 coach for the up and coming U18 World Championships. So his resume just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I'm a very, very proud alumni at this point.
That's excellent. You can see Evan and I picked our colleges based on sports and not
Absolutely.
not academics. All right, well, that's it for episode 69 of Mc&T Sports Report. I'm Joe in New Haven.
I'm Evan here in St. Andrews.
Thanks to Patrick Watt and Florence Mitchell for producing and editing a show that's the favorite of Montreal Expos fans everywhere. This is Mc&T Sports Report on CHCO in St. Andrews.